Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. Check out the description below to join our team or sign up to get a free strap and an extra month's membership with our link. On today's show, we have Justin LoFranco to join us to discuss a permit application that gives us a first look into a potential event at this year's CrossFit Games. Justin, we have seen this before, a permit application for an offsite event at the Games. So far, we know that the setup for this route, it will happen on Thursday, August 4th, with the event happening on Friday, August 5th from 9 until noon. Does this tell us or give us any type of indication whether this is an individual event, a team, or maybe even age group?
Yeah, traditionally there has, to my knowledge, and I'd have to go back and double check this, but I can say for absolute certainty in Madison, there's been an offsite event in every single CrossFit Games that's been hosted in Madison. 2020 is a little bit of a strange year because the whole thing was offsite practically, unless if you consider what happened on the ranch on site. But so let's throw that one out there. It was very popular in Carson. I'm pretty sure it happened every single year. There were offsite, if not one, there were multiple offsite events. And so this is kind of a classic CrossFit Games unknown, and every year it looks a little bit different. And this year we've seen sort of the first glance at that via this permit application that was filed with the Land Commission. It hasn't actually been approved yet, so I think it's important to note that. But it is an application. We have reviewed all the other previous applications year over year, and I found this one surfing the internet at about 4:50 this morning. So this is actually pretty new. And so to answer your initial question, which is there anything that we can really glean from this? And is it individual or is it for other divisions? My absolute guess would be 100% it is involved with the individual athletes. It would be very uncommon. In fact, it would be unprecedented for them to have an event where the individuals were not doing the offsite component. It's actually been traditionally reserved for the individual athletes, but they've been giving more opportunity to other divisions, teams, age group, and perhaps adaptive divisions. So last year was the first year for the adaptive division. So my guess would be that given the size and scope of what we're seeing, and we could show the map here in a second, but given the size and the scope of what we're seeing that's been applied for, it doesn't seem like it's an overly long event. And what we've seen from CrossFit Games is in the past is they traditionally put together the men and women for running and swimming, paddling, any combination of those. They typically put those together. And so if we're talking about starting from point A and moving to point B as the finish line through something, like we're seeing here.
On a bike, it says it's only 3.2 miles.
Yeah, on a bike, this is 3.2 miles. This seems more likely to be a run type scenario than a bike type scenario, but partially because of the fact that if you're going to apply this to multiple divisions, getting bikes for everybody's quite a bit of a challenge. And also remember, the finish line is as important as the starting line when it comes to biking, especially if you're going to have to get off and do something afterwards. And also a 3 mile or so bike is not by any stretch of the imagination far, which would take a Games athlete going 30 miles an hour, something in the vicinity of, what would that be? 5 minutes to go 2.5 miles. So not very far, not very long. And you could probably test the capacity for biking better on an echo bike than you could necessarily on a street bike. Without speculating too much, to answer your initial question, I would suggest that this is going to be applied to as many divisions as possible. And they can do a lot of these in mass and in waves. But we'll get to the next part later. It does depend on what happens at the finish line.
Right. And I even think it's interesting to note that, and maybe you can give us a little bit more context to this, but last year at the Games, the swim kayak event, that was the first day. That was on Wednesday. Then the athletes, individuals had a rest day on Thursday. And then Friday, everything was on site. Do you think that this kind of changes up the format or the bigger picture of the events at the Games being on a Friday?
Well, I think they've tested around with this a little bit. So I was doing some research this morning, and so last year, yes, it was an event one. Kickoff was the offsite event. Let's skip 2020 for obvious reasons. And in 2019, it wasn't until Sunday, event 9. 2018 was event 8, which was on Saturday, and then 2017 was event 1 as the kickoff. That was the run swim run event. And so I didn't go back into the Carson era to look at when the typical offsite event was, but it did often happen at the beach in Manhattan Beach. And it was a pier type event around the Manhattan Beach Pier, and it would involve some either swimming around the pier, swimming out to a buoy and back, and then maybe doing something in the sand. There were kettlebell thrusters that were involved there. There was a paddle around and other things. So, and those have typically been this sort of Wednesday morning kickoff event. Once they moved into Madison, they started switching around with that format a little bit. This would be the first time, to my knowledge, and again, I'm willing to be wrong here in 16 years of the CrossFit Games, but I think this is the only time that they've had a Friday as the offsite event.
I think it's also notable. The permit indicates that one of the streets being shut down will have a variety of things, and equipment was included. Do we think that it's going to be more than just like running and biking, and that they're going to bring like dumbbells or barbells or anything like that over?
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something when I saw the permit application the first time in 2017 for the Olin Boat Park launch ramp, and the area surrounding that was also in the permit. I remember Arm and Hammer and I speculated that it could potentially be because there was space and it was a description for a space, and we kind of bet that it would be or could be something that would involve that. Now, this, though, what makes this situation different is that it actually states workout equipment Thursday, August 4th, being brought in on Friday, August 5th, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., including the teardown. The details on the teardown, it actually says workout equipment removed from State Street, West Mifflin, and North Carroll. So, and then when you also look very closely at the map, which I have here.
I'll bring it back up.
Yeah, this one. I don't know if you have this one.
Farmers Market? No, I don't have that one.
Okay. Well, on this one specifically, it says right here that I've highlighted, and right here, it says here, competition zone with workout equipment. And I think that is a lot of
Okay, so it's more than
detail.
just having the bikes there.
Well, it says competition zone with workout equipment. And my suggestion would be, and the way I would read this, and again, this is speculation, but I would read that when you write the word competition zone with workout equipment, which is an unnecessary phrase, as in to get the application permit approved without workout equipment, you wouldn't need to really specify competition zone with workout equipment. You would just say competition zone or finish line, more likely, not competition zone. So I'm drawing my own conclusions and connections here. So my suggestion would be, my speculation is that yes, they will be doing something. And that's why I said I don't think they'll be doing biking to the location, because number one, 2.5, 3 miles, 5 miles on a bike for these guys, this is really not a big thing. You could put a Concept 2 biker, or you could put them on the Echo bike and smash your legs up in a different kind of way. I would see this being more like an on foot type element. It could be a rucking type element, which would make it so 2.5 or 3 miles on a ruck would be much different and would be more challenging. It is relatively flat to get up to there. And by the way, this is actually, and this is cool, most people who've never been to Madison, I know you would know this as a reporter who lived in Madtown, and myself.
Oh yeah.
This is actually on the square where the Capitol building is. Mm-hmm. And so you actually have the Wisconsin State Capitol
building.
Very
cool area.
And this is actually taking place around it. So I think they're going to be moving some stuff. I think there's going to be some workout equipment there, because they say workout equipment. I could be wrong. They could be knowing Justin's going to be dumpster diving in the middle of the night for permit
at 4
applications.
a.m. like a raccoon in the middle of the night.
Like a digital raccoon, just rummaging for little treasures in the
scraps
in the recesses of the internet. But
I
think there will be, and I hope there will be. There you go.
To state the obvious, it's surrounded by water, but in the permit, it doesn't say anything about the boat launches. That I know from looking at last year's permit, they did indicate like the 2 separate boat launches where the athletes would enter, where they would come out of. So what does that mean? Does that mean that this event is not going to have swimming? Can we conclude that?
I think it's a safe conclusion, because in all previous years, and I have looked at all past permits year over year, since 2017 that has specified actually a use and need. So when you're thinking about, okay, what's not there, it's if they need or are required to have a permit to use those locations. So the fact that it's not specified in here, now that does not mean that they cannot file a separate permit for another location, because this is with the land use commission. So this probably more specifically deals with road closures, whereas the other is probably a parks and recreation permit request. And I could go back and look at my permit files, but I'm making a little bit of an assumption here. They could obviously have a component that would do that, and then they could include, and Olin is certainly on the way. On the large map, it is on the way to downtown across the bridge. Olin Park is right next to that, and so they could file a separate permit, though I haven't found one yet. So we'll see if that happens. But it would be hard to know from this. But given if this is the only permit that gets filed, I would not think that they would be using the water for this particular event or for any event.
Just based on your history of looking at these permits and knowing timelines for when they potentially get approved, do we have any type of indicator that this is something that takes a couple of weeks? Are we not going to know this until closer to the games?
Well, it's so the second thing that I did was to look at the agenda items for upcoming meetings for the land use commission. The agenda has not yet posted, but the next meeting is August is June 29th. So that would be 6 days from Thursday. So it would be next week. End of next week would be the next meeting. It seemed to, what I looked back from previous agendas and previous meetings, it seemed to be that they were submitting for the next meeting's approval. And so I imagine that this will be held and considered by the committee for actual approval, potentially as early as June 29th, in which case they will record the minutes of the meeting. I know this is so cool to all these people on the internet. They'll record the minutes of the meeting. They'll have the agenda items.
That sounds so boring.
This is what I did in Congress.
That's why we have Justin to look at.
This is why we're here to discuss, the land use commission's agenda items and how to read them in the minutes of the meeting. But essentially, they're going to say, "Hey, this is what was under consideration. These line items, these line items, these line items. Each one of these is assigned a number, and then we will reference back and to say, okay, did the committee approve these?" And they know what they're doing here at CrossFit. They have done this before. I'm fairly confident that. Without any changes or issues with the permit, log online next Thursday. You guys should know if we got a permit approved, or we'll tell you. We'll probably let you know too. Something like
we'll let you go through those minutes. I don't think that any of us want to do that. From doing it before, it's not that fun.
Yeah.
Justin, when we're looking at the first details, the first takes of potentially one of the events at the CrossFit Games, what is your bottom line?
Well, there are two things. First is this looks like sort of a return to the more traditional Wednesday, Thursday off, Friday format. This is for Bosman's first year programming the game. So he's a big student of the games. He's been around for, I don't know if he was there in 17 or 18, but he's been there for a vast majority of the games and responsible for the judging aspect of the games. But he's been around in all of these meetings, all these conversations about what they're doing and why they're doing it and stuff. So it would be I think this is unique. I think if we're seeing sort of a new programmer taking over and not necessarily to put just their own stamp onto the events, but each programmer has their own ideas and sort of interest is to pair together sort of a running environment with weights and with those elements happening outside. I think it would just be very, very cool to see that. So my bottom line is I really hope that it involves equipment, that we're not just, getting thrown a loop here, but it involves equipment, and it would be really cool to see that happen. And I'd be really personally very excited. And this is the best time of the year, right? This is the year where we get to do this stuff, and we get to talk about it when, details are scarce and we're trying to fill the airwaves with time. But I really hope it happens. I hope this is where Bosman's taking it, because we've seen the lake paddle thing a lot and the lake run thing a lot, or water run thing a lot. That's great. And that's fine, but it's kind of been done a lot. I'd also like to see a return to the pool personally. We haven't had that since 2013, if I'm not mistaken.
Are you going to go look for those permits at like the University of Wisconsin pools, or
UW's got a nice pool?
Yeah, they do. That's why I'm saying maybe we should look into that.
Maybe one of you internet sleuths out there wants to do my job for me, because I got a lot on my plate right now and I could use a little extra hand. I tell you what, you got a free t-shirt coming to you, or a pair of shoes, and find a permit before I do.
There you go. Otherwise, I guess we're going to wait until Thursday to find out.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, anytime.